So, there's a new, pretty in depth report out that takes us inside Elon Musk's very controversial AI powered encyclopedia, Grokipedia. Today, we're going to unpack the key findings from that report to really understand what's being claimed about this project. So, what is actually going on with Grokipedia? Let's dive in. Okay, so on the surface, the mission seems pretty clear. Its founder, Elon Musk, has positioned Grokipedia as a truthful alternative to Wikipedia, a platform he's often criticized for what he calls a left-wing bias. The goal, in his own words, is to purge out the propaganda. Simple enough, right? Well, this is where the story takes a really sharp turn. A recent investigation by The Guardian, which is a huge part of the report we're looking at, came to a very, very different conclusion. It alleges that Grokipedia is actually promoting extremist ideologies. So you've got this direct clash between the stated mission of truth and these findings that suggest something else is going on entirely. So let's break down what the report found, starting with how it frames Grokipedia as a truthful encyclopedia. What the report is saying is that the project wasn't just built to be, neutral, but that it was designed as an explicit right-wing corrective to the kind of consensus reality you see on platforms like Wikipedia. And really, the core allegation of the report is that there's a consistent pattern at play here. The analysis claims it's uncovered a systematic effort to whitewash extremist figures and to promote racist pseudoscience, all while presenting it as just legitimate information. So what's the actual proof for these pretty serious claims? Well, the report gets into side-by-side comparisons of Grokipedia's content with more established sources. In a section it calls Analyzing the Rectified Reality. And what's so interesting here is the direct comparison. The report points out how Grokipedia talks about Jared Taylor, a known white nationalist, for his pivotal role in intellectualizing white preservation. And for David Irving, who is a convicted Holocaust denier, the entry apparently frames him in heroic terms as a symbol of resistance. And it's not just people, right? The report says this pattern extends to ideologies, too. It finds that eugenics is defined as a science which deals with all influences that improve the inborn qualities of a race. And at the same time, the 14 words, which is a notorious neo-Nazi slogan, is apparently justified with this academic-sounding language about observations in evolutionary biology. And this quote from political biographer Richard Cook, which is cited in the report, it really just hits the nail on the head. It basically says, the project is a copy of Wikipedia, but one that gets consistently rectified to align with a very specific worldview. Okay, this next point is huge. The report calls the entry for Elon Musk himself the Rosetta Stone of the whole project. Grokipedia's entry apparently uses glowing terms like innovative visionary, while it just so happens to leave out well-documented controversies, like his promotion of extremist talking points. So you have to be wondering, right? How is this content even being made? What's the process happening behind the scenes? The report's third section dives right into what it calls the architecture of bias. Well, the report lays out this pretty straightforward four-step process. First, it copies Wikipedia articles, sometimes almost word for word. Then, it strips out the original reliable citations. Next, it injects new, often biased claims. And finally, it slaps a label on it, fact-checked by Grok. But the real key here, the thing that makes all of this work, according to the report's analysis, is Grokipedia's sourcing policy. To correct Wikipedia, Musk said the AI was told to research the rest of the internet. So the report really focuses on, well, what exactly is the rest of the internet? And get this, a study from Cornell Tech, which the report cites, found a pretty shocking number. The study found that Grokipedia articles are 13 times more likely to use a blacklisted source. That's a source that's been blocked by the Wikipedia community. So what kind of sources are we talking about? The report lists a bunch from the Cornell study, including far-right misinformation sites like InfoWars, the neo-Nazi forum Stormfront, state propaganda, and, get this, even unverified conversations that are just happening on X itself. Okay, so now let's zoom out a bit and see how all of this connects. In its fourth section, the report widens its lens to look not just at the encyclopedia, but at the AI that powers it and the social platform it's built on. What's really interesting is the report argues this bias isn't just in Grokipedia, it's baked into the Grok chatbot itself. The analysis documents a whole bunch of instances where the chatbot generated extremist content, including, believe it or not, praising Adolf Hitler and pushing conspiracy theories. And this is where X, the platform itself, really enters the picture. The report cites multiple studies showing a huge and lasting spike in hate speech right after the 2022 acquisition. The argument is that this polluted data environment is basically the main training ground for the Grok AI. So the report puts together this timeline to kind of connect the dots over the last 3 years. It links the acquisition of the platform, the founder's own public statements, and the launch of the AI products to paint a picture of what it calls an escalating alignment. Okay, so how does this all fit together? The report's final section tries to answer that by synthesizing all the evidence into a single idea it calls a closed information loop. And this is the model they came up with. The report argues it starts with a founder's ideology. That ideology shapes the platform environment on X. Then, the Grok AI is trained on that environment, and its outputs are then turned into truth in Grokipedia. And finally, the report claims that any researchers who challenge this loop are attacked, which seals it off from any accountability. And the report is super clear that this isn't just, online talk. There are real-world stakes here. It concludes that the biggest impacts are the normalization of extremist ideas and the breakdown of a shared, fact-based reality, and it even cites research linking spikes in online hate speech to actual offline hate crimes. I mean, listen to this quote from Heidi Beerick, who co-founded the Global Project on Hate and Extremism. That's a pretty powerful statement, right? It really drives home just how serious the report's conclusions are. And this isn't even the endgame. Looking ahead, the report notes the ambition is way bigger. The stated goal is to rebrand Grokipedia as Encyclopedia Galactica, a nod to Isaac Asimov's fictional encyclopedia of all knowledge, and to expand into audio, images, and video. So yeah, the report basically leaves us with this one big, pretty unsettling question to chew on. It asks us to really think about the consequences when a closed information loop, built on what it says is a foundation of extremist ideology, scales up with the goal of becoming the one and only source of all knowledge.